Good day, everyone. Today is June 15th, 2025. I'm coming to you for Reason to Resist from Montreal. Here in Canada, it's Father's Day today, so I'd like to begin by extending my respects to fathers everywhere, whoever you may be, but particularly to those fathers who are not only caring for their families, but who are also fighting on the side of justice and who are doing what they can to resist the scourge of Western imperialism, which, as I'm going to discuss today, probably threatens us more now than ever. Today, I'm going to examine what has happened during the last 48 hours in the criminal war of aggression that Israel and its Western backers have launched against the Islamic Republic of Iran. I'm also going to explain with some trepidation where I think all of this is heading. As many of you will know, I was in Iran about 1 month ago for the Sobe Media Festival. It was my first visit to Iran, and I met many wonderful people there and have remained in contact with a good number of them. One of those persons was and is a journalist who works in the state media in Tehran. And she advised me this morning that as of this morning, the civilian death toll from Israel's attacks in Iran stands at 78, with the majority of the victims being women and children. And she shared with me a graphic which highlights some information about a few of those civilian victims of the Zionist aggression. And this is the graphic she shared with me. As you'll see, one of the victims was a 2-month-old infant, another a reformist political activist, others a teacher and a retired civil servant with their children. A poet was killed in the Zionist aggression, a stock market trader, a mountaineer, and a Pilates coach. These people obviously come from a cross-section of Iranian society. And apparently their only crime was that they are Iranian. Now, yesterday, as reports emerged that Iran had launched its latest installment of the True Promise 3 military operation against the Zionist entity, something which it had vowed to do back in October after Israel's latest aggression against Iran. When I heard that, more retaliatory strikes were on the way yesterday, I went to Al Jazeera Arabic because I couldn't find live continuous coverage of the airstrikes on any English language media outlet, and certainly none of the major Western corporate media outlets, which I suppose is not surprising. In any event, after watching for a couple of hours the live continuous coverage of the strikes on Israel on Al Jazeera Arabic, during which time I saw powerful images, quite frightening images of major hits on infrastructure in Israel, I decided just to check out what was going on CNN to see whether they were giving this the kind of coverage that any respectable news organization would give. And this is what I saw when I turned on CNN briefly. You'll see there it was a report, a video report by Jake Tapper about Israel's covert operation to get weapons inside Iran. And the person you see there under Jake, who's at the top of the screen, is apparently a former Israeli spook. So he brought onto his program somebody to, perpetuate the mythologies surrounding the all-powerful and all-seeing Mossad, at the very moment when the genocidal entity was being hammered by Iranian retaliatory strikes. In any event, I quickly turned that nonsense off, went back to Al Jazeera Arabic, and watched it pretty much without pause until the latest round of strikes was apparently over. So I'm going to look with you in some detail at what I saw last night. And before I do that, I just want to say a word about the sources of the videos that I'm going to show to you. Um, the uh, the main sources that I've relied upon during the course of this 20-month genocidal war on the Palestinian people have been on Telegram. And I'm going to identify the three channels that I've relied upon the most. Uh, One is called the Resistance News Network. The other is called the Military Media Broadcasting Channel. And the third one is called Slaviangrad. Now, Slaviangrad actually came to my attention well before the genocidal war in Palestinians began in October 2023. I had already been watching it, Slaviangrad, all the way back from 2022 when I began to follow closely the events in the Ukraine war, because Slaviangrad was providing invaluable information about what was happening on the ground in the sea of misinformation in which we in the West were drowning at the time and continue to drown when it comes to the Ukraine war. And, they clearly have, I think, a pro-Russian perspective, but I thought it was important that I access information being provided by the so-called enemy. And I have found Slaviangrad to be, and of course, Resistance News Network and the Military Media Channel to be reliable sources of information over the many months that I've been following them. I don't know who runs them. Clearly, Resistance News Network and the Military Media Channel are very closely connected to resistance groups because they provide detailed information very, very quickly following developments on the ground. And I have found generally that the information they provided is later verified directly or indirectly or confirmed by Western governmental authorities or international organizations like the UN or UNRWA, or even by the Western media at times. So I have come to have confidence in them. But that being said, I can't vouch for the accuracy of everything that they publish, and particularly when we are in the thick of the fog of war as we are right now. So the videos I'm going to show to you came from principally from Resistance News Network and the Military Media Channel. And as I say, I trust these Telegram channels as much as one can in the circumstances we find ourselves in today. But I can't tell you with certainty or near certainty that these videos are what they purport to be. So, however, if information comes to my attention, and if you bring to my attention information which draws into question the authenticity of any of these videos, I will be sure to share that information with our audience, and where appropriate, issue a correction or a retraction. One other tidbit of information about these two channels, Resistance News Network and the Military Media Channel. For some reason, they are unavailable in Greece. I have to use a VPN to access them when I'm in Greece, but they're readily available here in Canada, which seems odd. So either Greece has banned them pursuant to some, anti-free speech regulation at the level of the European Union, or the pro-genocide, shamelessly pro-Israel government of Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis has locally adopted a regulation banning access to these two channels, which is just outrageous because, as I say, they really are valuable sources of information which you aren't going to get most of the time in the Western media. So where am I going to begin? I'd like to begin with a strike on an oil refinery in Haifa. Yesterday during the day, the government of Iran announced that it had partially suspended gas production at the world's biggest gas field after an Israeli strike caused a fire there yesterday, Saturday. And this was reportedly the first Israeli strike on Iran's oil and gas sector in this war of Israeli aggression. Understandably, Iran retaliated last night by attacking an Israeli oil refinery in Haifa, and I'm going to show you some footage of the aftermath of that strike. And there, of course, is the war criminal, Benjamin Netanyahu. Um, so, Israel is, as I'm going to talk about at more length, it's a very small country. Its major infrastructural projects are limited in number. Um, if, in fact, this strike succeeded in disabling for an extended period of time that refinery, I can imagine easily that this is going to have a significantly negative impact on the functioning of Israel's economy, maybe even on the functioning of its military-industrial complex. We'll have to see. But certainly that was a significant strike and one that was provoked, obviously, by the state of Israel when it attacked, the world's largest gas production facility in Iran on Saturday. So next up, and as by way of background, I'm going to talk about what appear to be hypersonic missiles. Tehran claims that last night it used the Hajj Qasem missile to attack Israel. That missile is named after Iranian General Qasem Soleimani, whom the Trump administration murdered in January 2020 in Baghdad, along with others, including officials of the Iraqi government, just before Donald Trump left the White House at the end of his first administration. One might regard that crime, which almost precipitated a full-blown war with Iran, as Trump's parting gift to his beloved genocidal entity. In any case, Hajj Qasem means apparently vengeance. The missile is said to have a range of 1,200 kilometers and comes equipped with a maneuverable re-entry vehicle. It reportedly carries a powerful 500 kilogram warhead and has an atmospheric entry speed of Mach 11 and an impact speed of Mach 5. This, I believe, based on my understanding of the terminology in missile warfare, would qualify the Hajj Qasem as a hypersonic missile. Now, many videos have emerged from last night's retaliatory strikes, which, as I indicated, appear to show, missiles traveling at exceedingly high velocity, and they therefore may well have been hypersonic missiles. And I'm going to begin with one. It's not a video that I've been able to find on the Telegram channels, but I'm going to show you this video posted on X. Now, I'm going to show that to you one more time, just in case you didn't notice it. Look at the shock wave bursting up from the blast site within a second of the strike hitting its target. It's obviously, I would think, a very powerful weapon. So here, I'll show it to you one more time. There's the shock wave. Obviously, that missile struck whatever was was unfortunate to be on the receiving end of that blow. Um, without any impediment from Israeli air defense systems. In fact, I didn't even see any attempts by Israeli air defense systems to intercept that rocket. The other thing to notice about it is how it was appeared to be traveling at much higher speed than the other rockets or missiles. I think there were two others that appeared in the image at the very beginning. So that is obviously a fearsome weapon, which is very likely to be creating insuperable problems for Israel's air defenses, and not just Israel's air defenses, but British, American, Jordanian air defenses, all the air defense systems and layers that have been brought to bear to protect Israel. It's important to understand that if Iran's weapons can get through those air defenses, they can get through any air defenses, because right now what the West is surrounding, the West and its vassals in the region are surrounding Israel with, is probably, almost certainly, the most formidable array of air defenses that they can bring to bear in any military conflict. So the second video I would like to show you, if you just bear with me here, is this one. You'll see a bunch of missiles enter the screen, and these are air defense missiles going up. A number of the incoming missiles are being intercepted, and then you see at much higher velocity those strikes with large explosion on impact. Let's watch this again. Those are air defense missiles. Some of them are striking incoming missiles up there. And then at high velocity and huge impact, incoming Iranian missile strike targets being impeded by Israel's air defense systems. Now let's look at another one, rather fearsome video of what appears to be a hypersonic missile striking Tel Aviv. So it's going to loop over. You can see the aftermath there. There's fire and smoke. So here it is again. Now, in that instance, you can see explosions in the sky from what appear to be Israeli air defense missiles. So an attempt seems to have been made in that case to intercept that missile, but the air defense systems failed. So let's move on and look at some more video of last night's events. And I just should, I readily acknowledge that you can find plenty of video of Israeli air defenses or whatever other air defenses, whether they're US, British, whatever they may be, successfully intercepting incoming missiles and drones. It would be surprising if they were not able to, with all of those assets and all the money spent on them and all the hoopla surrounding them, it would be very surprising if they were completely ineffectual. Of course, to some degree, they are going to be successful in shooting down incoming missiles and drones, particularly the slower moving drones. But there's also plenty of videos showing Iran's successful penetration of Israel's air defenses. And perhaps the most dramatic of them is the one I'm going to show you now. This one, by the way, I think was shot not last night, but on the previous night, because I found it on Telegram yesterday during the day. You'll see here missile coming in. I believe this is near Tel Aviv. And those, obviously, those lights going off, appearing on the screen when the missile reaches the Earth. These are impacts, these are explosions upon impact with the Earth. You see there's more these missiles coming, and virtually none of them are being intercepted. And in fact, you see almost no air defense missiles going up during this the entry of this volley of missiles into Israeli airspace. Let's watch this once again. And by the way, I counted more than 15 ground impacts just in that volley of missiles alone. Okay. And I'm going to show you another one. In which the Israeli air defenses failed to meaningfully impede incoming strikes.
מה זה? מה זה? אלוהים ישמור.
הצילות, נותן לי לפניכם. אם אני איזה פחד אלוקים. הם נופלים על הרצפה.
נופל ב100%. השחתיכות של הטילים?
רצור הדסה. לא יודע, נפל 50. לא ספרתי.
So that video appears to show that none or almost none of, I don't know, I would estimate somewhere between 10 and 15 incoming missiles were intercepted, and that almost all of them, if not all of them, actually hit a target. Whether or not it was the intended target, of course, I can't say. But again, more evidence of what is now a mountain of evidence that all of these air defense systems that have been brought to bear to protect Israel are much less effective than we have been led to believe. And that, in fact, as you will see, Iran, which does not have the most sophisticated missile arsenal in the world, although it is sophisticated in missile technology, can inflict very serious damage, even though Western militaries have arrayed around Israel the best air defense systems that they can offer. So the next video I'd like to show you is also of a missile that appears to be hypersonic in nature. If you just bear with me here 1 second. Watch that one more time. You'll see that you will have seen that that is really extraordinary speed with which that is striking the ground and packing quite a punch. And that, I understand, was a video of a strike by a single Iranian missile on a part of Tel Aviv, a coastal section of Tel Aviv known as Bat Yam. And I have here a video, I believe it was published by Israeli media, which shows the aftermath of that strike. This damage, as I say, was done apparently with a single missile.
בוא לפה, ברק.
Now, according to Israeli media, that strike killed, sadly, at least 6 people, wounded dozens of others. And I must say, however, that what you saw in that video, I have seen on dozens of occasions in the past 20 months on my one visit to the West Bank, in particularly the Jenin and Tulkarm refugee camps, which have been absolutely ravaged by Israeli military forces. And I saw this kind of destruction over and over and over again on my 4 visits to South Lebanon during the past 20 months of genocidal warfare on that country by Israel. And in fact, my most recent report, you can find it from February of this year. I was in the Lebanese border village of Kfar Kila, and essentially the entire village, which had several thousand inhabitants, had been leveled to the ground. Not a collection of buildings, 6 or 7 buildings, the entire village. And that has been repeated throughout the south of Lebanon, entire villages razed to the ground. So while I do not wish harm upon any civilians, I cannot stress that enough, Israel, it must be said, is finally getting a taste of what its appointed leaders and military officials have been inflicting upon innocent Palestinians and other innocents in the region from other Arab countries and from Iran for decades, not just during the past 20 months, but for decades. And I very much doubt that the civilian population of Israel is prepared for carnage like this, especially if Iran is able to sustain the intensity and the scope of these missile and drone attacks upon the genocidal entity. Now, one other successful Iranian strike I want to show to you is Iran's attack last night on the Weizmann Institute of Science. This is a public research university in Rehovot, Israel, and it is this science institute is known to be closely collaborative with and connected to the Israeli military, including Israel's murderous drone maker Elbit Systems. And here is some video of the Weizmann Institute being struck last night. It seemed to me in that video that there was more than one projectile that struck the institute, or there was a secondary explosion, because it seemed that there was an initial explosion and then some seconds later a larger one which created more smoke. In any event, while the strike did not, it doesn't appear to have completely leveled the facility, it does appear to have caused significant damage to this very important research institute with close connections to the Israeli military. And presumably, this attack was intended as retaliation for Israel's murder of Iran's nuclear scientists, including family members of civilian nuclear scientists in Iran. So that brings me to the all-important question of where all of this is heading. There's no indication that I can see thus far of any kind of de-escalation. And in fact, the conflict appears to be escalating. Israel's psychotic defense minister, Israel Katz, has threatened to make Tehran burn. And when that kind of threat is coming from a government that is committing genocide and doing so in an audacious manner and has nuclear weapons at its disposal and has threatened to use them in the past, This is extraordinarily dangerous and inflammatory language that Israel's defense minister is using. And there are, in fact, reports of Israel using conventional weapons to bomb Tehran today. And meanwhile, Israeli media reports that Iran has launched another volley of missiles at Israel during the day today. And in my opinion, for reasons that I'm going to articulate momentarily, this war seems poised to go on for some time. And I think it's extremely unlikely that this is a war that Israel, acting alone and relying strictly upon conventional weapons, could possibly win. Why do I say that? Well, first, it took Israel more than 1 year to inflict enough damage on Hezbollah that Hezbollah felt compelled to stop attacking Israel in solidarity with the victims of Israel's genocide in Palestine. I repeat, it took more than 1 year. And I can assure you, I was there numerous times during the combat between Hezbollah and Israel. And Hezbollah was launching attacks for over a year on Israel every single day, on average, somewhere in the range of 15 separate attacks. So if it took Israel that long to inflict debilitating damage on Hezbollah, it will almost certainly take Israel far, far longer to inflict debilitating damage on Iran if, and it's a big if, Israel confines itself to its conventional military weaponry. And why is that? Why would it take far longer? Well, first of all, Hezbollah's forces and arsenal were situated right on the border with Israel. So it was very easy, relatively speaking, for Israel to attack Hezbollah's forces and arsenal, much easier than it is for them to attack Iran, which is not on the border with Israel and is hundreds of kilometers away. When I was in South Lebanon during the period of combat between Hezbollah and the Israeli genocidal military, there were Israeli drones and warplanes in the sky almost continuously over South Lebanon, almost continuously. And certainly part of the reason that they were there was to respond as quickly as possible whenever there was a launch of missiles, rockets, or drones from South Lebanon into Israel. The presence of those drones and warplanes in the airspace of South Lebanon maximized the chance that Israel would be able to strike Hezbollah fighters and who were launching missiles and drones into Israel and be able to destroy their missile launchers and their drone launchers before they were taken away and put out of harm's way. That's one of the advantages, if not the principal advantage, of being able to have constant surveillance above and constant destructive capacity in the skies above when you're fighting an enemy that is relying overwhelmingly on missiles and drones. Well, guess what, folks? Israel can't do that in the case of Iran. It can't have warplanes and drones constantly in the sky above or even on the border of Iran because Iran is too far away. They don't have the warplanes and drones that Israel possesses don't have the range to be continuously present in Iranian airspace or even on the edge of Iranian airspace 24 hours, 7 days a week. So this is going to mean inevitably that Israel will not be able to destroy Iran's missile launchers and drone launchers and eliminate the military personnel who are using them, deploying them with nearly the same efficiency and at the same rate as happened in the case of Hezbollah's missile and drone forces. Of course, that means that it's going to take longer for Israel to degrade them. So that's one reason why Israel is very unlikely to be able to neutralize the threat from Iran in less time or even as much time as it took to neutralize the threat from Hezbollah. Another reason why this is going to be much more difficult for Israel is that Hezbollah had no real air defenses to speak of. Iran, on the other hand, has real air defenses. And while those air defenses, as we have seen, are nowhere close to perfect, they can shoot down many Israeli missiles, many Israeli drones, particularly because they're slower moving than the missiles. And they do constitute a serious threat to Israeli warplanes. In fact, Iran claims to have shot down already 3 of the supposedly invisible Israeli F 35s. And I can't say whether that claim is true or not, but there is plenty of evidence on the ground in Iraq, fuel tanks apparently, that have fallen, have been jettisoned by Israeli warplanes in Iraq, because that is essentially where those warplanes have been confining themselves. They've been staying out of Iranian airspace, at least trying to enter it as infrequently as possible in order to avoid being shot down. So in the case of Hezbollah, Israel's drones, and particularly its warplanes, operated with near total impunity in the airspace of Lebanon. I saw this again and again when I was there. So again, this is another reason why it is almost certainly going to be much harder for Israel to neutralize the threat from Iran. Another reason why it's going to be much harder is that Iran is the 17th largest country in the world, with a territory of 1.65 million square kilometers. And its military forces, including missile and drone forces, are spread out throughout the country. Much of it is extremely mountainous. Now, in contrast, the military forces, drone missile forces of Hezbollah, were concentrated in a tiny area in the south of Lebanon. And although it is hilly terrain, it isn't the kind of mountainous terrain that you find in large parts of Iran. And as a result, it is going to be much harder for Israel, vastly more difficult for Israel, to identify, ballistic missile targets, missile launchers, drones in Iran, and eliminate them than it would be and was in the case of Hezbollah. A third factor, which is going to make this much harder for Israel than it was in the case of Hezbollah, is that Hezbollah was believed to have about 50,000 men under arms, whereas Iran has approximately 610,000 active duty personnel, plus 350,000 in reserve. So the reserve forces and the active duty personnel of the Iranian military approximately 20 times larger than the fighting force of Hezbollah. And as I said, they're spread across a much larger territory and are therefore much more difficult to target and eliminate or neutralize. Finally, Iran has a much larger missile and drone arsenal than Hezbollah had at the outset of the hostilities in October 2023. And Iran has a far greater capacity than Hezbollah to produce additional missiles and drones as Iran's arsenal becomes depleted. Iran Watch, a website published by the Wisconsin Project on Nuclear Arms Control, says that while it's difficult to know the true size of Iran's arsenal, Iran does have the largest and most diverse arsenal of missiles in the Middle East. In 2022, U.S. Central Command's General Kenneth McKenzie stated, according to this website, that Iran possesses, quote, over 3,000, close quote, ballistic missiles. And this does not include the country's burgeoning land attack cruise missile force. Again, that was the estimate in 2022. It's entirely possible that Iran ramped up its production of ballistic and cruise missiles since then, as it became increasingly likely that it would be subjected to attack by the United States and or Israel. Now, those are the missiles. There's the drones as well. Iran is certain to have thousands of drones and may well have tens of thousands of them. And Iran has proven that its drone technology is highly sophisticated. As Iran's weapons and air defense systems or stocks become depleted, it may well receive large-scale assistance from one or both of its strategic partners, China and Russia. And reports have already emerged of cargo planes whose contents are unknown, flying from China to Iran. So let me show you one example of that. This is a report in Slaviangrad from the last 24 hours. And as you can see, Slaviangrad reports, citing publicly available sources, that an Airbus A330-243F cargo plane from Gwangju Baiyun International Airport is flying southwest over eastern Turkmenistan, descending as it approaches Iranian airspace. This is the second cargo plane that has traveled to Iran. If I'm China, then I would love to see the U.S. burn up their high-end AD missiles, air defense missiles. Even better would be getting radar signature of F-35s. The only place China could get valuable F-35 details would be this theater of conflict. I believe that's what they're saying here, as I doubt Israel is operating the F-35s with a Lundberg lens. I don't know what that means, a Lundberg lens, but one thing I can say with confidence is that China has a powerful motivation to ensure that Iran is not defeated by Israel and its Western backers. They have a strategic partnership involving hundreds of billions of dollars of investment. China is the largest consumer of Iranian oil. We all know that Iran has very considerable oil and gas resources. If Iran were to fall and be replaced by its government, be replaced by a puppet regime from Washington, which is almost certainly what the Americans would do if they succeeded in removing the current government from power. This would be a very significant blow to China's ability to conduct business, including and particularly access the fossil fuel resources of countries in the region. Because in that case, if Iran's government fell and was replaced by a vassal of Washington, the United States and its Western allies would effectively have a dominant position throughout all of West Asia. And it's not just the oil and the gas, of course. This is a large market for Chinese products, potentially. In fact, China exports a lot of goods to the region. And there are critically important trade routes in West Asia. So China has powerful incentive to ensure that Iran's government does not fall. And so too does Russia, although for different reasons. Russia doesn't have a need of Iran's fossil fuel resources, but it does have a strategic partnership agreement which provides for the construction of a north-south trade corridor through the Caspian Sea, which enables Russia to circumvent any impediments that the West might throw up to its use of the Black Sea for its external commerce. As John Helmer, a Russia expert, has explained on our program, a longstanding fear of the Russian political and military elite is that Iran would be used as a springboard for military operations against the southwest of the Russian Federation. So there are plenty of reasons why Russia, which has, I believe, the best air defenses systems in the world, will not want to see Iran be defeated by the West and its government be replaced by a vassal. So I think there are other considerations we have to bear in mind here in terms of how this is likely to unfold. The Iranian people know what it means to sustain large casualties to protect their homeland. They've done it before, including within my own lifetime. In 1980, Saddam Hussein invaded Iran. For 8 years, Iraq fought a war on Iran with the support of both the United States and the Soviet Union. But Iran fought Iraq to a standstill over 8 years of brutal warfare. It did so despite losing between 200,000 and 600,000 soldiers and civilians. I'm talking here about deaths, not wounded. There were hundreds of thousands of more who were wounded in that terrible war. And despite suffering those losses and repeated chemical attacks from Saddam Hussein's army, attacks that were facilitated knowingly by U.S. intelligence on Iranian military forces. Despite all of that, as I say, Iran managed to fight Iraq to a standstill and lost no territory in that war. In addition, Iran has a far larger population than Israel. Its population is estimated at 91 million people and is spread over a large territory. By contrast, Israel has a Jewish population of 7.2 million people, which is about 8% of Iran's population. Also, Israel's population is concentrated in a very small area. The territory of Israel encompasses about 22,000 square kilometers, which is less than 1.5% of Iran's territory. Moreover, a big chunk of Israel's territory is taken up by the sparsely populated Negev desert. The vast majority of Israeli Jews live in what is effectively a tiny triangle, geographically speaking, whose 3 points are Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, and Haifa. So when your population and all of the infrastructure that is needed to support them is in such a small, concentrated area, inflicting damage, very serious, debilitating damage on the infrastructure that is required to support them, is much easier than it would be in the case of Iran, which is, as I say, the 17th country, largest country in the world, and has very, very mountainous terrain. On top of all of this, Israel's military is exhausted. It has been waging war on multiple fronts for 20 months, something it has never had to do before. It was not constructed for attritional warfare. It has already consumed huge quantities of munitions and is likely to be in desperate need, or will be soon, of more air defense missiles. After arming both Ukraine and Israel to the teeth during the long war still ongoing in Ukraine and the numerous wars of West Asia over the past 20 months, it behooves us to ask how many munitions and air defense missiles and systems is the United States able to give to Israel in the months ahead? And the answer is likely to be not a lot. And in fact, the Ukraine war is ongoing. And I've been saying, repeatedly, I'm not the only one, but I've tried very much to make this point. The reason why Donald Trump wants a ceasefire, he's not interested. He has evinced zero interest in addressing the core causes of the Ukraine war that the Russian Federation won't stop talking about, repeatedly raises them. He simply says, and he's even threatening Russia with economic sanctions if it does not agree to a temporary ceasefire with no preconditions. That obviously would enable the United States to focus its military hardware and its arsenals on what is happening in West Asia. So that's the real game here, folks. Trump wants and is adamant about a temporary ceasefire without preconditions in the Ukraine war precisely because he wants to finish off Iran and all the resistance groups in West Asia. That's the plan here. And once that is done, I don't think it's going to succeed. I'm quite convinced it won't. But if it were to succeed, then Trump undoubtedly, or his successor, whoever it might be, Democrat or Republican, it doesn't matter, would revive the war in Ukraine and escalate it ever further with catastrophic consequences potentially for all of humanity. And I think that the Russians understand this all too well. They figured the game out, and they have absolutely no interest in agreeing to any kind of a ceasefire without preconditions. So that war is going to continue. And this is going to be quite a problem for both Ukraine and Israel, because we're already talking about heavily depleted weapon stocks in the West. And in fact, there are reports already that the Trump administration, within the last few days, diverted weaponry that was originally intended for Ukraine to the genocidal entity. Now, when I add it all up, I say that Israel does not have the capacity to win a conventional war of attrition against Iran. That is extremely unlikely to happen. And before I go on about that and say a little more about this high improbability of failure, high probability of failure, I should say, on the part of Israel, I'll reiterate here that I'm not a military expert, and I've never pretended to be. And I readily accept that when those of us who are not military experts, try to form a view about where something like this, a terrible war like this, is heading, which it is incumbent upon us to do as citizens who, are concerned about the future of our children. It is, of course, the sensible thing to listen to what military experts have to say. But as we've seen, military experts can disagree vehemently on prospects for success in any military contest or the means by which success can be achieved. And even worse, a lot of them are just propagandists. Yes, they may have legitimate military expertise, but at the end of the day, they're being influenced by the fact that they serve in some military or they have a rich sinecure at some think tank that is funded by military contractors, or they sit on the board of a military contractor. And so they're constantly spewing misinformation and not telling you what their honest assessment is, or they themselves may actually be experts but be biased, perhaps for financial or other reasons, ideological reasons. And so we as citizens without military expertise, we have to sift through all of this information and exercise our own judgment. It doesn't make us experts, but we can't simply defer entirely in matters as important, as momentous, as existentially important as war is, large-scale war involving nuclear-armed states. Given the importance of this, we have to do our best as laypersons to exercise our own independent judgment, bring to bear our own capacity for critical thinking, come to our own conclusions about where these wars are likely to head. I've done the best that I think I can do as a non-military, as a layperson who's deeply concerned about these things. I think it's, as I say, incumbent upon all of us to do that. We have to earn the right to live in a democracy. And that means we have to be diligent in informing ourselves about things of this nature and forming our own opinions to the best of our ability. So again, my opinion, for what it's worth, is that Israel cannot defeat Iran by conventional means in what may well unfold into a war of attrition. I think it is implausible in the extreme, to the point of being laughable, the idea that Israel, acting alone and confining itself to conventional weapons, could defeat Iran in a matter of days or even weeks or even months. This kind of a thing, Israel alone, I don't think can do it at all, frankly, unless it resorts to nuclear weapons. Or the other possibility is that the United States enters into the war on a massive scale on the side of Israel. Now, in that regard, a very interesting article just appeared in the Israeli media, which I'd like to share with you. And according to the Times of Israel, and it's not just the Times of Israel that is reporting this, other media are as well, Israel asked the U.S. to join the military campaign against Iran, but the U.S. rejected the request. This report is dated June 14th. That's yesterday. And the article says Israel has urged the U.S. over the past 2 days to join its newly launched military campaign against Iran, but the U.S. is currently not considering such a move. Apparently, Axios was the original source of this report, citing both Israeli and American officials. In the past 48 hours, says the Times of Israel, Israel asked U.S. President Donald Trump's administration to join its attack against the Islamic Republic's nuclear and military sites. Two Israeli officials told the news site. A U.S. official confirmed Israel's request and said the Trump administration is not currently considering joining the conflict, the report reads. Now, there is, of course, a distinct putrid air of unreality to this report. And what is the distinct putrid air? It is that, without a doubt, the United States already is participating in Israel's war of aggression on Iran. Despite U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio's absurd claim, which he made immediately upon the launch of this war of aggression by Israel, that Israel was acting unilaterally, it's crystal clear that the U.S. is already providing vitally important assistance to the genocidal entity. At a bare minimum, that assistance consists of the munitions that Israel is using, aircraft refueling, which is necessary to enable Israeli warplanes to get close enough to Iran to attack it with missiles and bombs. Air defense systems, the Americans don't even hide the fact that they are providing air defense systems. They have a THAAD air defense system there, was put there in anticipation of this war of aggression, I'm sure. They're providing air defense missiles. They have put their warplanes in the skies to help shoot down Iranian drones. The British have also confirmed that they're doing this. The Jordanians are doing it. So the Israeli military is already getting lots of critical assistance from the West and its vassals, from the United States government and its vassals. And of course, undoubtedly, the United States, which has the most sophisticated, satellite intelligence and satellite reconnaissance system in the world, is using it to provide critical real-time battlefield intelligence to the Israelis. It's unthinkable that the United States is not doing that. The Israelis don't have anywhere near the capacity, the satellite network and intelligence gathering capabilities of the United States from a technological perspective. What is not clear at this time is whether US flagged military assets, among which are aircraft, naval vessels, and submarines, are themselves launching missiles and bombs at Iran. I've seen no evidence that that's the case, but that doesn't mean it isn't happening. And given the nature of the relationship between Israel and the United States military, given the objectives of the US military, the hegemonic objectives, and given its propensity to lie and deceive the American people about war, it's entirely possible. And I think myself, I would say it's likely that US flagged warplanes, naval vessels, and perhaps also submarines have launched many of the missiles and bombs that have struck Iran illegally within the last 72 hours or so. But if that's going on, I think we can say safely that it's happening on a relatively limited scale. If it was happening on a massive scale, we would have hard evidence of it by now, I would imagine. Now, why is it that Trump would do this on a limited scale and not just come right out and throw everything plus the kitchen sink militarily at Iran, particularly when the genocidal entity came to him within 48 hours and was pleading for military intervention to protect Israel from Iran? Why would he mislead the public about that? Well, as I've said many times, I'll say it again, polls show that a large majority of Americans do not want a war with Iran. They want to see this whole nuclear issue resolved by means of negotiation. Even a substantial majority of Republicans feel that way. And Donald Trump, acquired the support of this segment of the US population that is sick of the forever wars of the United States by lying to them through the presidential campaign last year and telling them that he wanted to be the candidate of peace. He even expressed an ambition to win the Nobel Peace Prize. Okay, so he has a political problem. And the political problem is that a large proportion of the people who voted for him, in fact, almost certainly a large majority of the people who voted for him, do not want to go to war with Iran. He also has a legal problem. And the legal problem is that under the US Constitution, he has to require the consent of Congress before going to war. And he doesn't want to do that. If he had to go to Congress, there would have to be a debate, and this would cause people to suddenly wake up to the danger, Americans, and probably many Americans would mobilize to try to stop Congress from giving the necessary authorization. And then this all could end up in the courts and so forth, whether the United States government, the president, has the authority to do this without congressional approval. This is a mess that Donald Trump doesn't want. So for now, he is trying to keep America's involvement relatively limited and under the radar. But that doesn't mean it isn't there, and that doesn't mean that it isn't critically important. So I think, moreover, that inevitably they're going to tear off the mask. The officials from the Trump administration, they will reveal that they are, in fact, providing direct, lethal military support to Israel. through U.S. flagged military assets, American warplanes, American naval vessels, perhaps American submarines as well, and that the United States military is going to dramatically increase its direct military participation in this war of aggression. I think that's inevitable. It could happen at any time, especially if the rate of destruction, if Iran manages to maintain the current rate of destruction for weeks, I think it could happen within a matter of days. And in fact, there was a report today that the Trump administration isn't ruling out. See, his administration is already conditioning the public to prepare for this. And he's not ruling it out, even though he, for the time being, has rejected Israel's desperate request for U.S. military intervention. Not only do I think this is inevitable, I think that this was the plan all along. The United States is waiting for the Israelis to suffer enough damage that the U.S. president can go to the American people and say with a straight face that the very existence of Israel is threatened, and therefore the United States has no alternative but to get involved. Now, I say this was the plan all along. This is not something new. I've been saying this for quite some time. And it's interesting to note that even though I've been taking this position for many months, that we were heading towards a war with Iran and that the United States was engaged in Kabuki Theatre. It was trying to convince the public that it wanted to end the war in Ukraine and it wanted to end the destruction of Gaza and it wanted to avoid a war with Iran, that in fact, it doesn't intend to do any of those things. The United States government, in reality, wants to destroy all resistance to U.S. hegemony in this vitally important region of West Asia. And that, if that means wiping out the Palestinians, so be it. If that means turning Iran into a failed state, so be it. That's how much these psychopathic warmongers are hell-bent upon hegemony. So I was saying this all along without the benefit of knowing that the Brookings Institution, a neocon outlet, really at the core of the military-industrial complex in the United States, had put out an analysis in 2009, 16 years ago, called Which Path to Persia? Options for a New American Strategy Toward Iran. And the authors of this, there are 6 of them, Kenneth Pollock, Daniel Byman, Martin Indyk, Suzanne Maloney, Michael O'Hanlon, Bruce Rydell. This is a 170-page report, which is readily available on the internet. This came to my attention just 2 days ago for the very first time when I was listening to an interview being given by Brian Berletic of the New Atlas. Brian is one of those people out there with whom I have been in complete agreement. I came to this conclusion independently, not because of Brian, but I was fortified in my belief that this was the right analysis when I heard him explain his belief that this has always been the plan, and that all of this nonsense about Trump wanting to bring an end to wars and avoid starting new wars was really just a cover story for foreign policy continuity, which is to say, an ongoing and escalating commitment to U.S. hegemony. And this report, I think the most interesting part of it relates to the war criminal Netanyahu. And in chapter 5, they talk about Netanyahu at some length, the authors of this report. Chapter 5 is entitled, Leave It to Bibi, Allowing or Encouraging an Israeli Military Strike. And they're talking there about a military strike on Iran. And let me take you to a particularly revealing passage. This would be on page 89, at the start of Leave It to Bibi. For the United States, the Islamic Republic of Iran has been an enemy for 30 years, one that has sought to thwart U.S. policies in the Middle East, such as advancing the Arab-Israeli peace process and creating stable regional security arrangements. Crisis after crisis has arisen between Iran and the United States, but Iran has never been and almost certainly never will be an existential threat to the United States. That's an interesting admission. It harbors no territorial designs on the United States, has never conducted a terrorist operation aimed at the American homeland. This is from a neocon institution, and we're being told that Iran is the worst state sponsor of terrorism. Excuse me. And even should it acquire nuclear weapons, the authors continue, it lacks the delivery systems to threaten the United States directly. Further, its economy is anemic, and even if substantially reformed, will probably never provide the base for Iran to make itself a challenger to the United States on par with Nazi Germany, Imperial Japan, the Soviet Union, or Communist China. Well, one might ask oneself, what's the problem? The problem, according to the authors, is that while Iran is not a serious threat to the United States, it is a serious threat to Israel. So the authors stipulate or postulate a goal. As in the case of American airstrikes against Iran, the goal of this policy option, the Bibi option, would be to destroy key Iranian nuclear facilities in the hope that doing so would significantly delay Iran's acquisition of an indigenous nuclear weapons capability. However, in this case, an added element would be that the U.S. would encourage and perhaps even assist the Israelis in conducting the strikes themselves, in the expectation that both international criticism and Iranian retaliation would be deflected away from the U.S. and onto Israel. The logic behind this approach is that allowing Israel to mount the airstrikes rather than the United States provides a way out of the dilemma described in the previous chapter, whereby American airstrikes against Iran could become self-defeating because they would undermine every other American initiative in the Middle East, an outcome exactly the opposite of what a new Iran policy is meant to accomplish. And then further on page 94, given the stakes for the United States, the president should make a decision about a potential Israeli military attack against the Iranian nuclear facilities. There are 4 options. The first option is for the United States to give Israel a green light, permitting Israel to transit American-controlled airspace over Iraq. And that's precisely what the U.S. has been doing, by the way, precipitating protests from the Iraqi government. In this case, the United States would coordinate with Israel beforehand on how to manage the consequences of an attack, including Iranian retaliation and the regional and international political fallout. The option's principal virtue is that if Israel effects a military solution to the Iranian nuclear threat, the United States would benefit from the attack without taking the risk of using its own forces. Where have we heard that before, folks? Ah, yes, Ukraine, amongst other parts of the world, and eventually also Taiwan, I'm sure. And then he goes on and lays out a couple of other options, but I think it's pretty clear which option they've chosen. And then finally, the authors, under the subheading requirements, and this would be on page 96 of the report, they write, in one sense, the requirements of the Israeli airstrike option are minimal. If the U.S. concludes that this option is worth pursuing, it merely requires a high-level conversation between Washington and Jerusalem. Again, the principal virtue of this option is that it would result in airstrikes against the Iranian nuclear program and could mitigate the political, diplomatic, and even military burdens on the United States. It may also result in a strike against the Iranian nuclear program much sooner than the U.S. could be able to do, although the punch might be much weaker than what the United States could deliver. Well, folks, I think what we're witnessing is the implementation of this plan. Now, let's be clear that just because these warmongering, bloodthirsty savages have a plan doesn't mean that the plan is a sensible one, nor does it mean that they know how to implement the plan. And I think that what we're seeing right now is that their plan has already started to go terribly awry. That plan seemed to envision that the United States would stay out of direct military conflict with Iran. But the Israelis, as we've seen, are already asking the Trump administration to become involved. And the Trump administration is not ruling out becoming involved at some future point. If the level of destruction that we've witnessed over the last 2 days in the genocidal entity persists for an extended period of time, even just for another week, if this goes on for another week, I would be very surprised if the Trump administration doesn't suddenly, magically, miraculously have a change of heart, say, yes, we're coming in, we've got to do it, Israel is at stake, we're about to witness another Holocaust, and blah, blah, blah. The last thing I want to say about this, folks, is that this has got nothing to do with Iran's nuclear program. Sure, Israel is bombing these nuclear facilities, but the ultimate objective here is regime change. They want to put in power a vassal of Washington, just as they had before the Islamic Revolution. And you should have no illusions whatsoever that whatever you may think about the Iranian government, the present Iranian government, however low an opinion you may have of it, have no illusions that what will replace it if the Americans have their way is not a regime that will act in accordance with the interests of the Iranian people or be remotely democratic in character. It'll be there to serve the interests of Washington and London and the Israelis at the profound expense of the Iranian people. That's exactly where this is heading. So you want to criticize the Iranian government, go ahead. But that doesn't mean you should side with these insane warmongering lunatics who couldn't care less about Iranians, indeed couldn't care less about ordinary Israelis. What you've just heard from this neocon analysis from the Brookings Institution was basically contempt for the lives of Israelis. They're urging the US government to use Israel, little tiny Israel, as an instrument for destroying Iran's ability to resist and its nuclear program. Anybody with half a brain can see that this is going to end up resulting in very significant casualties for the Israelis, and that's exactly what has begun. Very significant casualties. These people don't care about Israelis either. All they care about is their own power and their own wealth. That's it. And they're willing to jeopardize the future of all of us in order to achieve that and maintain it. Which brings me to you. I must say that I'm quite alarmed about the fact, and when I say you, I mean everybody out there, not just the people who are listening to me today. All of us, particularly living in the West. I'm quite alarmed that there's been really no protest movement against this war. That we could have seen this coming a long time ago, particularly in the last few weeks, as Israel and the United States have been beating the drums of war, and there were reports appearing that the Israelis were preparing to attack Iran, and Trump was withdrawing non-essential diplomatic personnel from the region. Where are the protests? Where are the kinds of protests we saw against the invasion of Iraq? Where are the protests that we saw against the savagery that the United States displayed in the war in Vietnam? Even in connection with the brutal, corrupt war in Afghanistan, there were protests from time to time, although not nearly as many as there should have been. What is going to happen here, I fear, and this is really the most important thing I have to say today, I don't think there has been a conflict in human history, including the Cuban Missile Crisis, where there was a higher likelihood of the use of a nuclear weapon than there is here. As I say, the Israelis are already in a difficult situation. Their situation is going to erode over time. They actually could suffer catastrophic damage at the hands of the Iranians, and the Iranians have been boxed into a corner where they have no alternative but to use the weapons at their disposal in order to inflict enough damage on Israel to stop its aggression against Iran. So would these desperate genocidal lunatics use a nuclear weapon against a state that doesn't have one in order to avoid defeat? Of course they would. Of course they would. That should be your operating assumption. And then the United States would do everything in its power to prevent them from being held accountable for their use of this monstrous weapon of mass destruction. It was, after all, the United States that is the only state in all of human history to have used these monstrous weapons, and they use them on civilian populations. We are at great risk of nuclear war, more so than ever before. So please use whatever ability you have at your disposal, whatever time and energy you can spare to pressure your government to put a stop to this insanely reckless war in which we have already seen nuclear terror. The attacks on Iran's nuclear facilities are a flagrant violation of international law and risk releasing into the atmosphere extraordinarily damaging and dangerous fallout from these nuclear facilities. And yet, Israel every single day continues to do what it can to level these facilities to the ground. Please use your energies, your time, your goodwill to pressure your government into stopping this war before it's too late. And with that, as my message for the day, I reiterate Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. I wish I could do so on a more positive note, but the truth is the truth, and it's incumbent upon us to confront the realities currently before us. This is Dimitri Lascaris coming to you from Montreal on June 15th, 2025.